Variables are the backbone of any programming language, including JavaScript, enabling developers to store, manipulate, and retrieve data dynamically. In this video, we'll explore the fundamentals of JavaScript variables, from their declaration to their usage in various contexts. By the end, you'll have a solid grasp of how variables work in JavaScript and be well equipped to leverage them effectively in your code. Before we move forward in the video, don't miss out. Hit subscribe and ring that notification bell to stay updated on all our latest videos. Let's imagine you're new to this whole programming thing, and you would like to understand what does this variable means. In JavaScript, variables are like containers. Imagine you have boxes where you can keep different things. Similarly, variables are used to store and manage data in JavaScript. They hold different types of values, just like you can put different things in your boxes, toys, books, etc. Likewise, variables can hold different types of data. These data types include numbers, like 5 or 10.5, words, like hello or JavaScript, yes or no values or booleans like true or false, collections or array of data, like lists of items, and more. Variables are important because they allow you to work with data dynamically. Think of it as being able to change what's inside your boxes whenever you want. Variables let you do things like perform calculations, manipulate text, and respond to user actions on a web page. Let's quickly highlight the key points about JavaScript variables. In JavaScript, variables are used to store and manage data. Think of them as containers that can hold different types of values, such as numbers, strings, booleans, objects, and more. These containers are essential because they allow us to manipulate and work with data dynamically in our programs. The concept of variables is fundamental to programming. Without them, it would be very difficult to handle data effectively. In JavaScript, we have three main keywords to create variables: var, let, and const. Understanding how and when to use each of these keywords is key to writing clean and effective JavaScript code. So let's dive in and explore each of these in more detail. First, we're going to explore the var keyword in JavaScript, which was traditionally used for variable declaration, but is now considered somewhat outdated. The var keyword has a unique characteristic known as function scope. This means that when you declare a variable using var, it is accessible throughout the entire function in which it is declared, but not outside of that function. For example, if you declare a variable with var inside a function, you can use that variable anywhere within that function. But as soon as you try to access it outside the function, it won't be available. However, one of the reasons why var is considered outdated is because it doesn't have block-level scope, which can sometimes lead to unexpected behaviors and bugs. This is where let and const keywords come into play, offering more predictable scoping rules. Even though var is still valid and you might see it in older code bases, it's generally recommended to use let and const in modern JavaScript development. These newer keywords help to avoid the pitfalls associated with var and make your code more robust and easier to understand. Now let's take an example of how we can declare a variable using var keyword. In this example, we're demonstrating the use of var keyword. Here's a step-by-step explanation. First, we have declared a function called Welcome to Longswitch Academy. Inside this function, we declare a variable school name using var and assign it the string Longswitch Academy. Next we have is a block within the function. Inside the function, we have an if statement that always evaluates to true, so the code inside the block executes. We declare another variable welcome message using var inside this block. We then print welcome message to the console, which outputs Welcome to Longswitch Academy. Next, we are trying to access the var variables outside the block. Even though welcome message was declared inside the if block, we can still access it outside of the block within the same function because var is function scoped, not block scoped. We also print school name to the console, which outputs Longswitch Academy. After that, we are attempting to access the variables outside the functions. We call the welcome to Longswitch Academy function, which executes the code within it. We then attempt to print school name to the console outside of the function. This causes an error because school name is function scoped and is not accessible outside the welcome to Longswitch Academy function. This example demonstrates the function scope of the var keyword. Variables declared with var are accessible throughout the entire function in which they are declared, but not outside of that function. This behavior differs from block-scoped variables declared with let and const. So this was all about the use of vir keyword in JavaScript to declare variables. Let's move on to the use of let keyword, which was introduced in ECMAScript 6, ES6. The let keyword allows you to declare variables with block scope. So what does block scope mean? It means that a variable declared with let is only accessible within the block where it's defined. A block is typically any code enclosed by curly braces, such as in loops, conditionals, or functions. For instance, if you declare a variable with let inside a for loop or an if statement, that variable is confined to the scope of that specific block. Once the block is exited, the variable is no longer accessible. This block-level scoping helps prevent errors that can occur when variables are accessible in places where they shouldn't be, making your code more reliable and easier to debug. Let's check out one code sample. In this example, we're demonstrating the use of var keyword. Here's a step-by-step explanation. First we have is a conditional block. Inside that conditional block, we have an if statement that always evaluates to true, so the code inside the block will execute. Inside this if block, we declare a variable message using let and assign it the string hello from Longswitch Academy. We then use console.log message to print the value of message to the console. Since message is declared within this block, it prints hello from Longswitch Academy. I hope you are following along. In case you have any doubts, then please feel free to comment down below. We will definitely try to get back to you as soon as we can. Let's go through the second section of our code sample, which is the outer part of the block or outside the block. After the closing curly brace of the if block, we attempt to log message to the console again. However, because message was declared with let inside the if block, it is not accessible outside of this block. The variable message is confined to the block scope. Therefore, this console.log message statement will cause a reference error because message is not defined in this outer scope. This example illustrates the block-level scoping of let. The variable message only exists within the block it was declared in, preventing any access to it from outside the block. This helps to avoid accidental variable reassignments and keeps your code more predictable and manageable. This is all about use of let keyword in declaring variables in JavaScript. Now let's move on to the use of const keyword in JavaScript. Next, we're going to talk about the const keyword in JavaScript, which, like let, was introduced in ECMAScript 6, ES6. The const keyword is used to declare constants. This means that once you assign a value to a const variable, you cannot reassign it later in your code. Essentially, the value of a const variable is fixed after it is initialized. Similar to let, const also has block scope. This means that a variable declared with const is only accessible within the block where it's defined. A block is typically any code enclosed by curly braces, such as in loops, conditionals, or functions. For example, if you declare a constant inside an if block or a loop, that constant is confined to the scope of that specific block. Once the block is exited, the constant is no longer accessible. Let's check out one code sample. In this example, we're demonstrating the use of const keyword. Here's a step-by-step explanation. We have declared a function named displaySchoolInfo. Inside that function, we are starting with declaring and initializing a const variable. We declare a constant school name and assign it the value Longswitch Academy. We then print school name to the console, which outputs initial school name, Longswitch Academy. I hope you're following along. In case you have any questions or doubts, then please feel free to comment down below. Let's move forward. Next, we attempt to reassign the value of school name to new academy. This causes an error because const variables cannot be reassigned once they are initialized. The error is caught in the catch block, and we print the error message to the console. Let's talk one important aspect of const type variables. When you declare a variable using const, you must assign it a value immediately at the time of declaration. Unlike let and var, you cannot declare a const variable without initializing it. If you try to declare a const variable without an initial value, you will get a syntax error. Next, in the sample program, we attempt to declare a const variable school location without initializing it. This causes an error because const variables must be initialized at the time of declaration. The error is caught in the catch block, and we print the error message to the console. Next, in our sample program, we are demonstrating the block scope of the constants in JavaScript. Inside an if block that always evaluates to true, we declare a constant department and assign it the value science. Then we print department to the console, which outputs inside block department science. At the end of our sample program, we are tried accessing block-scoped const variable outside the block. We attempt to print department to the console outside the if block. This causes an error because department is block-scoped and is not accessible outside of the block where it was declared. The error is caught in the catch block, and we print the error message to the console. This example demonstrates the key characteristics of const. Number 1. Const variables must be initialized at the time of declaration. Number 2. Const variables cannot be reassigned. Number 3. Const variables have block scope, meaning they are only accessible within the block where they are declared. Let's talk about some best practices for variable declarations in JavaScript. Number 1. Use let for variables that need to be reassigned. It provides block scope and prevents issues that arise from var's function scope. Number 2. Use const for variables that should not change. It ensures that the variable's value remains constant, providing more safety and readability. Number 3. Avoid using var. Opt for let and const for better scoping and more predictable behavior. By choosing the appropriate variable declaration method, let, const, or var, you can write cleaner, more maintainable JavaScript code, reducing the risk of bugs and making your intentions clear to other developers reading your code. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions or need further clarification, feel free to ask. Happy coding!